Well, there's two of my horses. That Spot over there, he thinks he's a dog. And that's Dottie. I never did get a film of my mare before she died. I was too busy taking care of her. But that's almost an exact image of her. When she was younger, she looked exactly like the mare. Of course, my mare had white stockings, but people used to drive up and look, oh, look at the baby. Well, they were both 3 years old at the time, but everybody thought that that was her little filly. And that one right there, the knucklehead, my big lab shepherd mix, blonde dog, used to get out here and run together, and Ladybug, the dog, would run up and grab him by the tail, and he would spin 360 degrees and swing her around in the air and set her back on the ground. It was so funny to watch. And they'd take turns chasing each other. The dog would chase the horse, and then the horse turn around and chase the dog. They loved to play so much. But I had to take Ladybug in the house. We got such a coyote problem here. We had packs of 20 coyotes running. So I had to take her in the house as well as all my other dogs. They were all pretty well behaved and stayed right here at the house. But it was too dangerous to even leave them out, even in the daytime. But that's my babies. Ain't that right, Spot? Hello, Dottie. You sweetie pie. But that's two of my horses. I'll get some pictures of the others. Old and crackadated horses. Now this is Roscoe. Most gentle little horse that there's ever been on earth. Never had ridden him till he was 2 years old, because you don't want to break down a horse's back, so you wait till they're 2 years old. But he's my boy. He was born on my birthday. He was the prettiest fuzzy little thing. His hair looked like one of those mohair carpets that you had for a welcome mat. Just even all over, and he was the prettiest little thing. And there's Sonny. His mother and daddy were registered racking horses. He's got a real good racking gait. But I've got to get a farrier out here to trim his feet, because they're in bad shape and I can't get anybody out here. But Roscoe, when he was 2 years old, I went out and just put a halter on him, put a saddle on him, climbed up on him, rode off like he'd always been ridden. And that was a trait of every horse that came off of his daddy. Every one of them were dead broke. When you put a saddle on them the first time they took you, you climb right on, right off like they'd always been ridden. Hey, buddy, how's my boy? I gotta put that post back up on there so y'all don't get an eye hooked in it. But these are my boys, and I love them. Ain't that right, Roscoe? You my baby, ain't you? Yeah, we share a birthday, and you're a sweetheart. Hello, sonny boy. But that's my boys. Love them. And there's my John Deere Highboy. I hadn't used it in about 3 years, maybe 2 years. But anyway, I came out to start it, and the starter switch disintegrated when I pushed it, and I've got to put a new tire on the front. do some painting on it, but I got to finish installing that switch. But it's a good running machine. I drove that thing between 40 and 50 miles from where I bought it to the house. 2-day trip. I stopped halfway at a friend's house and parked it overnight because it was pouring down rain and windy, so I just decided to park overnight. But I got a real bargain on that. I paid about maybe a quarter of what it was worth, maybe a third, but I've sprayed a lot of fields with it. Put down a lot of 2,4-D to kill the weeds, but it holds 200 gallons of spray, and everything on it worked because all the pump and everything had just been redone. A new stainless steel tank put on it. Well, it was an existing stainless steel tank, but it worked good. But I got to get that thing ready. I've got some ground to spray with it. But I've been out of action for a while. I don't cut my own hay anymore except for what's on my place, which is maybe 12 bales or so at a time. But that's part of my farm machinery, which I'm starting to rehab everything now, just like me. And I don't know which is in worse shape, some of my equipment or me. Well, here's the story of Ruthie, my cute little dog. Thought I'd tell about how I ended up with her. I was coming home from the store one day and saw these two little dogs playing in the road, and one looked like a little Shih Tzu with the long hair and then its eyes, but it was probably mixed with a poodle or something because it had curly hair. And there was little Ruthie. I thought, that's the cutest two little dogs, I've got to try to catch them. So I came home, got some dog food, took it back over there and put out a little pan with food and water in it. Of course, I had a creek right there to drink out of. But they ate the food, but I couldn't get near them. And I did that 2 or 3 days. Then I went by there to put some food out, and they were nowhere to be found. And I looked all around for them, and they were across the creek in a field. So I went and put the food over there to turn in the road, and couldn't get near them. So I kept doing that for a couple of more days, and I got an animal trap I had, and I put food in it and put it out there in the edge of that field where they came to eat. They'd come up there to see me, but they wouldn't let me get close to them. And so a couple of days went by and they got the food out of the trap, but they never tripped the trap, and I found out the trip on it was broken. So I went up to Tractor Supply and got another trap, and went back down there and put it out and put food in it. And this time I carried it over to the edge of the woods where they were sleeping on a rock, big rock, in a 5-gallon bucket. That's how they were staying out of the weather, sleeping in that bucket. And but the little dog was missing. The little one with the curly hair and hair down its eyes. And this big old hawk came swooping down, and Ruthie ran off in the woods and hid. And what I had figured is, since that dog was gone, that hawk had gotten that dog, since it was in the spring. And they have babies to feed, so they always go out and kill as much as they can to feed their babies with. So I put food in the trap and came on home. And a couple hours later, I went back over there, and Ruthie was in the trap, and the other dog was nowhere to be found. I never saw it again. And all I can figure is that hawk got it, because when I picked that cage up and started across the field with it, that hawk swooped down at me. I mean, it was attacking cows, those blue egrets and gray egrets, or whatever they are. But that was a mean hawk, and it was a pretty big one too. But it was vicious. But I managed to get her, and I brought her home. She was covered in ticks. And I gave her a flea and tick bath and picked ticks off of her. And her ears were crammed completely full of ticks. May have been 20 ticks or more in each ear, and her ears are not very big. But I got her cleaned up and got all the ticks that I could off of her that night, and then the next day started again picking ticks till I got them all. And called the vet, took her up to the vet and got her checked out. She was in heat, so I went ahead and had her fixed, and brought her back home, and that was the sweetest little thing. And she wouldn't get 2 feet away from you, and walking outside, put her on the leash and bring her outside, she would not go outside on her own. She was scared of everything out here. I guess she'd had a pretty traumatic life. But she'd walk for about 5 minutes and then want me to pick her up. She didn't want to be outside. And we'd go back to the house, and she was glad to get back in the house. And she took up with my wife and just was never away from her more than a couple of feet. She'd get up and go to the kitchen for something. Little Ruthie'd go right with her. Took every step she did. Go to the bathroom, same thing. She'd go with her. And then at nighttime, it was so funny. Jean would go to the kitchen to take her medicine, and Ruthie would go around to the left and down the hall and sit right there where the dining room door to the hall open, and sit right there and wait for her to take her medicine, and then go on back and meet her at the door, and they'd go on back to the bedroom. She'd jump up on the bed and had to stay snuggled with her all the time. And it was such a tragic situation the night Jean died. Called the paramedics. When the paramedics came in, I had a little dog called Stumpy. He was born with a stub tail. 3 out of the litter had stub tails, and 3 had regular tails. And his sister, Jumper, just died about a month ago, a little over a month ago, 2 months ago. And but all those dogs lined up like little soldiers. There was one I called Little Bit. She was a lab whippet mix. Then I had a full-blooded dachshund, and I had little Stumpy, He was rat terrier mixed with a dachshund or something like that. And his sister Jumper, and she was named Jumper because she could jump up chest high to you. And, they all lined up just like little soldiers for the paramedics to come in and do their work. Just sat there still as a mouse. And when they took her down the hall and put her on the gurney to go outside, because there was a turn in the hall they couldn't make too good with that gurney as long as it was, wide as it was. So they carried her to there and put her on the gurney. But those dogs followed right along behind. I mean, perfect. But they were scared to death, you could tell. And that was the last time little Ruthie saw her. But they brought Jean out to the ambulance, and her heart stopped on the way out to the ambulance. Worst night of my life. But little Ruthie has stuck by my side, and I tried sleeping in the bed for a week, and I couldn't sleep there anymore, so I moved to the couch, and that's where I've been for the past 11 years. I couldn't sleep in that bed anymore. Jean was so special. But I've got mighty good memories of her. Mighty good memories of her. She was a lot of entertainment, and sweet as she could be, good to everybody. Did so much for other people when she had so many problems herself. But little Ruthie, I mean, she took it pretty hard, as did the other dogs, because they loved Jean. But she stuck right by my side. She's been that way for 11 years, stuck to me like glue. But old and crackadated is feeling really crackadated today. Hello, little Socks. Come here, my buddy. Oh, my beautiful Socks. Ain't he a sweetheart? He's just the sweetest kitty. Ain't that right, buddy? Yeah, you my boy. You my boy. My eyes seem to be sweating. Let me move this stuff and I'll show you. That's bottled water I've got making coffee in a few minutes. Oh, I'll just unsnap this and keep it going. I can tell Socks is gonna love this little thing. But I've got my rock stacked there for a seat, and one there for a seat, and the one that Socks is sitting on beside the stove. And there's my little pile of firewood. I built a fire in that stove yesterday, and it really worked good. But I turned this rock around. See how it's concave this way? It was the other way. That was a struggle. Well, let me cut this camera off because it's beginning to blink, and I think it's telling me it's just about to overheat the battery. Old and crackadated, if it can, it will, and it probably already has. I just hadn't found it yet. There's the board over the middle. I just picking up old stuff I got laying around that I took off of the back porch when I started putting down new planks. And I'll have a bunch more because I'm working my way across the back porch and fixing to start on the front porch, framing the floor for it. And I've got me a gang box here. That'll hold a lot of stuff for the cook pots and pans and all kinds of different stuff. And I'll hook a chain to it and put the chain around that post so nobody can run off with it. I'd like to see them try to run off with it now. It's pretty heavy. I've got a lot of stuff in it, but I got to clean it out. I've got a lot of tools in there. I need to put in a couple of more boxes and get them situated. More old crackadated stuff. I didn't let you in for a new treat today. Go off my little Teramite, which I made 900 dollars. It's 800 ever since I bought it, I've had to keep the gas shut off, take the lid off the air filter, get it cranked up, then gradually open the fuel shut off because the needle valve was stuck. Well, this morning I took the carburetor off and cleaned the needle valve with rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol. That's what you clean the modern carburetor with, or if it's got modern kit in it for the alcohol gas. If you use carburetor cleaner, it will melt all the rubber seals and gaskets and stuff in the carburetor. So always use isopropyl alcohol to clean a carburetor with. The old carburetors, you use carburetor cleaner, but you do that on a modern kit and it'll melt everything down inside. Ask me how I found that out for sure. I messed up a boat carburetor and I've been cleaning with alcohol ever since when I found out that the new kits, it'll melt them down using carburetor cleaner. You can clean the outside of the carburetor just fine with it. Just don't clean the internal parts. But that's a pretty good deal for $800 or $900. I buried 3 horses with it, dug multiple holes, did my sewer line to my septic tank, dug it all out with it, and so it's paid for itself already. But it's a good little machine and it runs fine, and when I cut it off a while ago I turned it back on. If I had done that before I cleaned that carburetor, it would have flooded out. You have to shut the gas off and take the top off of it, and I didn't even have to do the air filter. So it's running good now. Best it's run in a while. I just never did get around and have the time to do it, but I had the time this morning and the weather was right. Hello, my little socks. Oh, my little darling. This is my work helper. Him and Tommy been watching me work this morning. If it wasn't for my work cats and my work dogs, I wouldn't get anything done. Oh, but yeah, that's a real bargain on that machine. It's got new tires on the back. Need some new ones on the front, but they'll run for a long time the way they are. It's not a fast machine, but it'll get the job done. It'll dig a hole 12 feet deep. It'll move a lot of dirt. And every time I buried a horse, I dug the hole twice as big as it needed to be. But that's a good machine, and it's served me well. I've got a skid steer, 445 Mustang skid steer. I went to an auction and they said it didn't run. It'd been sitting for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years after they'd had the hydraulics worked on and the engine worked on. But what happened? They ran it out of diesel fuel and didn't understand you have to prime a diesel when you run it out most of the time. So they said it didn't run. People brought it to them, said it didn't run. That's what they announced at the auction. They had an online bidder, and he quit bidding at $1,300. I bid $14. Nobody else bid, and I got it. Brought it home. Took one of the injector lines loose. Wasn't pumping any diesel fuel, so I knew right then what the problem was. And I just unscrewed because the pump to the primer wore out. So I just unscrewed it and filled it with diesel fuel, put the primer pump back on, Hit that thing, it turned over 4 or 5 times, fired right up, and ran smooth as silk, no smoking, no nothing. Smooth as it could be. So I put it to work right away. But I bought some mighty good pieces of equipment because people say it don't run. Well, you got to do a little maintenance to equipment. Well, that's enough jawing. Old and crackadated is, very old and crackadated. I'm gonna go down and get a few more rocks to bring up here. Man, have I got tons of rocks. And up here on the hill around these oak trees, I've got rings of rocks this big around, that big around, just tons of them. Before I bought this place, it used to be a landscaping business here. They had greenhouses, and of course they tore all the greenhouses down and sold them. Wish they'd still been in operation when I came to buy it, but I've got all kind of plants here, all kind of exotic stuff. Matter of fact, got to dig some there's some kind of a rose. They're beautiful flowers and they grow in a shaded area around trees. I've given her buckets full of them and she's needing some more. She's got a wooded area up behind the house she's trying to eliminate having to work the ground and keep weeds and stuff to her because it'll choke out all the weeds around it. But they're beautiful flowers. They've got some strange colored leaves. Some of them are green, some are yellow, some are pink. Really beautiful stuff. And they spread pretty good too. Well, old and crackadated, if it can, it probably already has. I just hadn't found it yet. Oh, what I was saying when, well, shucks, let me readjust the camera. Oh, I'm telling you, the pollen is so thick around here right now, everything is blooming heavy. I coughed and coughed the other day and spit stuff on the ground, and I've got 3 pine trees, 2 dogwoods, and a pear tree with a partridge in it's already sprung up. I'm telling you what, and where I sneezed, I've got wildflowers growing all around that place. Anyway, what I was saying when I was out there on my Teramite, when I was operating the foot pedal, it's hydraulic drive. And if you want to go backwards, you just push down on the pedal with your heel and it'll back up. You want to go forward, you just toe down on the pedal and it'll go forward. Easy drive system, and hydraulic drive is probably the most reliable drive system that there is. You have very little trouble out of it. Anyway, I just thought I'd add that on in because I looked at the film and you couldn't hear what I was saying when I was out there. But that thing really operates good, and it had a little leak down on the main cylinder on the hoe, and I put some of that seal treatment in it. Thing has held up good ever since and hadn't leaked down. And it's been real good on hydraulic fluid. I haven't got any leaks, but I do need to change out all my hoses. I don't want to have a burst hose in the middle of a job. And I've got lots of jobs around here to do. Well, I may have enough video now to put up another video. Old and crackadated, if it can, it will, and it most likely already has. I just hadn't found it yet. Well, in every video, I need to do at least one tune. Just warming up a while ago, was starting to get some of the trimming. I don't know what's making it so bad, unless it's been all the heavy lifting I've been doing lately. But I try to stick at least one tune in every video until I get it right, which around the year 2050, it ought to be about right. Old and crackadated, if you can, it will, and it has already, I guess.